Good morning.
Morning. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. I am Professor Mahendra Reddy of Hyderabad. I know you, but you don't know me.
Oh,
I have heard you several times. I am impressed by you.
thank you very much.
I am privileged to listen to you today.
Thank you. Are you aware of the format today? What
That I don't know. I am just watching from Hyderabad.
Okay.
9:30 is the time they gave. So I have logged in at 9:30 and
Right.
I'm able to.
I can see Professor Rajesh Tandon also.
Rajesh Tandon is there. Okay. Rajesh.
Good morning. Good morning. I have also logged in and waiting for my turn to come.
Yeah. But probably the vice chancellors haven't come yet.
Right.
I
Okay.
think they may. Then Vedahi, Vijay.
Well, I guess we'll have to wait till somebody tells us what's the schedule. Yeah. Okay.
Priya, let's go.
Namaskar. A very good morning to everyone assembled here for the Day 3 Technical Session 5, Track 9, Realizing SDGs through HAIs for Ensuring Inclusive and Equitable Quality Education. The chairperson for this session is Professor Sunil Rai, who is the Vice Chancellor of UPES University of Petroleum and Energy Studies, that is. He's a veteran academician. He has a vast experience of 42 years. Also, he has served in the Indian Navy and in the corporate world too. Before joining UPES, he was also the Vice Chancellor of MIT Arts, Design and Technology University, Pune, and Director on Board of Maharashtra IT Corporation, Government of Maharashtra. He has led them in various capacities as Pro Vice Chancellor, Director, Dean, and Chairperson. And in some of these universities, he has converted them into huge brands. And that's, I think, something which all leaders ought to be doing it. Dr. Rai is also a member of the Board of Advisors, Outreach Programs of Virginia Polytechnic University, Blacksburg, US, and co-founder of Cambridge Global Partners, Edinburgh, UK, which provides strategic consulting to several industrial and academic organizations. We have 3 speakers in this session. Professor Dinesh Singh, former Vice Chancellor, University of Delhi, who will join us online. Dr. Rajesh Tandon, who will also join online. He is the founder president of PRIA and UNESCO co-chair in community-based research and social responsibility in higher education, followed by Dr. Vedahi Vijay Kumar, who is currently the Vice Chancellor, Mother Teresa Women's University. She is here physically present with us. It's very heartening to have physical speakers post-COVID. May I now invite our chair, Professor Sunil Rai, to give his opening remarks, with which we will follow with the introductions of the speakers.
Namaskar and very good morning to all present. Colonel Dr. Thiruvasagam sir, the President of AIU, Dr. Pankaj Mittal, Madam, the General Secretary, AIU, all the fellow panelists who are joining me in this panel, for reasons beyond control, Shri M.K. Sridhar could not join this particular panel. So I am coordinating on his behalf. I was introduced. I am Dr. Sunil Rai. I also welcome other co-speakers. Illuminous Professor Dinesh Singh, sir, former Vice Chancellor, University of Delhi. Dr. Rajesh Tandon, founder, president of PRIA and UNESCO, co-chair in community-based research and social responsibility in higher education. Both these luminaries are joining online. And of course, I have my fellow colleague here, Dr. Vedahi, who will be making her presentation. We will go in this particular order. Also, I pay my respect to all the fellow vice chancellors who are present today. Of course, one from Nepal. It's so delighted that you are here, and also others who are present in the hall, ladies and gentlemen. This is the 9th technical session that we have. We have had 2 exhilarating days of deliberations, rich deliberations, and what a wonderful event that we had been happening, thanks to our President, sir, and General Secretary, Madam. And of course, I would like to place on record on my own self, as well as on behalf of AIU, the hospitality and the finesse with which the entire team of the Mysore University, under the guidance of their illustrious Vice Chancellor, have made these 3 days extremely special. I thank you very, very sincerely. This technical session is on realizing SDGs, as has been the theme of this AIU meet. This session is for ensuring inclusive and equitable quality education. Very, very important topic. We heard yesterday, Khosla Saab talked about India and Bharat. And in that context, for Bharat, this particular panel today becomes very, very important. It has to be inclusive in all sense. Thanks to the NEP that has been announced, the definition of inclusivity has increased. It's not about just inclusivity on the standpoint of social challenges or financial challenges, but also inclusivity in terms of views, thoughts, and beliefs, and which is what is required when we proceed with the higher education. With these very brief remarks, I would invite the first speaker for this morning, Honorable Professor Dinesh Singh, sir, former Vice Chancellor, University of Delhi, to please make his remarks. Before that, I will request Madam to please introduce.
Who is the former Vice Chancellor, University of Delhi. He is a distinguished mathematician and educationist. He is a distinguished senior fellow, Advanced Hackspace, Imperial College, as also adjunct professor, University of Houston, US. He has been awarded Padma Shri by the Government of India. He has been conferred honorary doctorates for his work as a mathematician and an educationist by University of Edinburgh, National University of Ireland, University of Houston, US, and National Institute of Technology, Kurukshetra. He is involved in an honorary capacity in raising the academic profile of K.R. Mangalam University, Gurugram, to a global level by launching the Institute for Inventions, Innovations, and Entrepreneurship. Over to Professor Dinesh Singh.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your kind words, Professor Rai and Madam. I am delighted to be a part of this event. And from what I have been able to make out, the last 2 days have been very productive and invigorating. And for me, it's a privilege to be a part of this journey and a learning experience that I will cherish. I have been asked to speak, but I wasn't aware of the time limit that I have at my disposal. Given, I presume, Mr. Chairman, sir, that there are I think 3 speakers or 4?
4 including me, sir.
So would we have about 15 minutes? Am I right?
Yeah, 15 minutes each. After 12 minutes, I may just give a little signal, and then 15 minutes we'll wind up, sir.
Okay, so my time starts now.
Keep the Q&A in the end, sir, if time permitting.
Right, sure. So, you know, this idea of sustainable development goals, it should be central to any knowledge enterprise. And I'll give you my reasons. I have understood as little as I could through my limited experience, but definitely very rewarding, that the youth, not just in India, but in every part of the world, tend to get excited, inspired, and motivated when they are confronted with challenges and needs of society and of nations. And through that, they then try to do things that give meaning to their own lives. The purpose of education, the whole purpose, is to allow each individual to discover the meaning and purpose of his or her life. I call this the drumbeat within, antardhvani. And if you can discover that drumbeat and march in the real world in harmony with that drumbeat, then you begin to get educated. And as little as I have understood, this doesn't necessarily have anything to do with an institution. Mahatma Gandhi found his drumbeat when he watched the play Satyavadi Raja Harishchandra at a very young and impressionable age. And he realized that his life would have to revolve around his quest for truth, that he would adhere to truth no matter what the cost. And that was the calling of his drumbeat, and he believed in it, and he marched in the real world in harmony with that drumbeat. And you will notice that Gandhi had no degree to his credit. There is this misconception that people have, that he had a law degree. He did not. Gandhi had no qualification beyond the school. In exactly the same way, I've noticed if you look at Sachin Tendulkar, the great cricketer batsman, Bharat Ratna, the highest civilian honor that India can confer on an individual, Tendulkar has no qualification beyond high school. But he found his drumbeat, cricket, batting at a very young age in life, and he marched in the real world in harmony with that drumbeat. This is what I mean by creating a whole environment and ecosystem around young minds that exposes them to various drum beats that exist in the world. And these drum beats will come to you through the needs and challenges of society and of the nation. And individuals then find a drum beat outside that resonates with the drum beat within, and then they begin to march in that direction in harmony with the drumbeat, and they begin to get educated. Why does this resonate with sustainable development goals? Because, one, this is what inspires the youth. And two, in my limited experience at the University of Delhi, when we redefined the entire curriculum, we introduced a new undergraduate program. We built the curriculum around the needs and challenges of society. And what were they? We used the term needs and challenges, but they were exactly the sustainable development goals that we are talking about in this conference. And we built the curriculum keeping some principles in mind. And that allowed inclusivity in every sense of the term. And I will, with the limited time at my disposal, try and narrate a little bit of that experience for many reasons. One, it was personally very rewarding. Two, it led to enormously productive outcomes. And three, the national education policy at the higher education level is more or less a verbatim reproduction of what we did at the University of Delhi. It's a tribute to my colleagues who worked so hard to put those things in place in the first instance. And so let me just quickly narrate through what I believe may be a good learning experience. So once we had done that, we had to bring these things into a formal system. And I'll give you an illustration. I'm a mathematician, and I believe that if you illustrate with examples, things become far more clear. So one of the degree programs we had created was called Bachelor of Technology Humanities, Design Your Degree. You can understand that it leads to a fair amount of strange reactions in the beginning, technology, humanities, so on and so forth. We just explained to everyone that this whole program is designed to re-engineer the mind, and the mind is a technological marvel, and so we've called it a Bachelor of Technology Humanities, Design Your Degree. This program, a 4-year program, had more than 2 years of credit distributed across the 4 years that came entirely along the following lines. That's what the curriculum prescribed. So one, there were many needs and challenges, about 9 of them, around which the whole curriculum was centered. This is something I want to emphasize strongly, that the curriculum was transdisciplinary in nature. So we would look at things not through the narrow lens of a single subject. The subjects would be intermingled. The curriculum was a very hands-on curriculum. It was practice-based. Most of the credit would come through project work. Number 3, the curriculum required you to work in groups in any part of the domain that exists around you or far away, but in a way you had a mentor that took you forward and guided you. There were other things that really worked. I realized the University of Delhi was faced with an enormous opportunity. We were given, in time I was Vice Chancellor, a huge category of students who had come to us from the underprivileged or the deprived sections of society. They came in huge numbers. There was one problem, they had a language issue. And I realized immediately that the moment your teacher recedes and becomes a mentor and they work in groups, then language no longer remains a bar. And so they could talk freely with a mixture of their own native tongue, which would largely be Hindi because we are situated in the region, but also English. And we looked at the way they defined their projects, and I'll give you one example because that's so sustainable. A group of students who had just entered the first semester. One of the things that they were learning was practical applications of simple mathematical modeling through the use of the computer. And they came across a very, very exciting experiment in a remote part of Maharashtra where a village had designed a whole running water supply system for the village for a round-the-clock supply of water. 9 of these students and a mentor traveled all the way by train to Maharashtra, spent a huge amount of time understanding what they had done, re-engineered the whole thing through a computer mathematical simulation, created a system that could now be readapted for any village in India. And they did not stop there. Through our own mentoring, they then created a startup. That's the last part of this whole thing about sustainable development. This has to be channeled into something productive where they see tangible results. And if you think this is an isolated example, think again. We had this in numerous numbers. Last night, by a strange coincidence, I came across a student who had studied in that first batch. And he informed me about what those students in his batch are doing. There is one student who got together with some others from his own group. They have a startup which has now reached a valuation beyond 100 crores. And from India, they have now moved to Silicon Valley. These are students who came through the humanities stream. I want you to think about this. And if you think that is just one example, There are so many at this point in time. When I last checked, at the University of Delhi, startups engendered at that time have been valued currently at more than 50 crores. One group of students set up, and this is so sustainable, electric battery recharging with plants which were totally mobile using sustainable renewable energy sources. Again, that startup has begun to show success. I want us to think and understand, if you want sustainability, if you want development goals, you must re-engineer the curriculum around these things in a practical way. The danger that I notice in a large number of institutions, many of whom are in India, is that we have confined education largely to lectures, classrooms, the blackboard, and textbooks. And together with this, we must redefine how we assess. Assessment is as much a part of sustainability as anything else. Don't let our assessment systems be means of disabling students. You will never have inclusivity if we create assessment as removed from the learning process. Then that excludes. And with these experiences, add as much as you can innovation. That was the key word. All these programs were first engendered at the innovation center that we had set up. Then they were distributed to the university. And here's one innovation that happened at my time. And my time is almost over and I'm almost done. We rented a whole train from the Indian Railways, called it the Gyanodaya Express or the Dawn of Knowledge Express. It was a college on wheels. And students were allowed to travel on that train based on how many projects of sustainable kind that they could submit to us, working in groups. The entire train had been converted into a college. This was not a journey for tourism purposes. And many startups and other activities used to come out of the journeys of the Gyanodaya Express. We ran one journey each year. More than 1,000 students would ride. And this would go to different parts of the country, and students would be selected based on what they would submit as projects, sustainable projects. Many of them worked on renewable energy when one of our journeys took us through Rajasthan, because they were aware of what was happening in Rajasthan in the matter of solar energy. So my point is this. We need to not place the cart before the horse by first creating a curriculum, then saying, let's look for applications and sustainability. Reverse the whole process. Build a whole ecosystem of your curriculum, merge with the needs and challenges of the nation and of society, make it transdisciplinary, inject entrepreneurship, minimize your lecturing, let them work in groups, and inclusivity and sustainable development goals will certainly follow as a corollary. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. We could have gone on to you for the paucity of time, but wonderful thought, sir. I know you created ripples with your design your own degree venture that you had started. I think it was too ahead of time. A lot of us didn't understand. But when I'm making my presentation, it would appear as if I have copied totally from Dr. Dinesh Singh. So how well the thoughts are aligned. So thank you very much, sir. So if you find my presentation was done last night, so and we are meeting this morning.
Well, I'm honored, sir, that I'm in your company.
So thank you very much, sir. And we will, of course, go by all these, design your own degree, the College on Wheels, Gyanodaya Express, and the entrepreneurship spirit that runs in Delhi University is something for all of us to follow. And now I would request to introduce the next speaker, that is Dr. Rajesh Tandon, please.
I'm very honored to introduce to you all an internationally acclaimed leader and practitioner of participatory research and development, Dr. Rajesh Tandon. He is the founder president of Participatory Research in Asia, Global Center for Participatory Research and Training since 1982. He has been appointed co-chair of the prestigious UNESCO Chair in Community-Based Research and Social Responsibility in Higher Education for 3 terms, which really is an achievement, sir. An electronics engineer from IIT Kanpur, MBA from IIM Calcutta, PhD in management from Case Western Reserve University, US. That's Dr. Tandon for you. He has served on numerous expert committees of Commonwealth, UGC, UN, Government of India, and World Bank. A pioneer of participatory research, he has given new meaning to academic research by redefining the relationship between the researcher and the researched. I have one more announcement to make. He is the first Indian to be inducted to the International Adult and Continuing Education Hall of Fame in the year 2011. With this, we welcome Dr. Rajesh Tandon.
Wonderful. I think we are all waiting to hear Dr. Tandon. In the meanwhile, it's my privilege to invite, to welcome Dr. Hemant Kumarji, the Vice Chancellor of Mysore University, who is the host for this particular event. And what a wonderful time we are having, sir. And of course, Rajendra, you are here, so from the UNESCO side. Now over to you, sir. Dr. Rajesh Tandon, we are eagerly, the assembly.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I am honored to be invited to this wonderful meeting. I wish I could be there physically with you. I am also delighted that Association of Indian Universities under the leadership of Dr. Pankaj Mittal and the current chairperson has taken this initiative to convene conversations around the country on different SDGs in a manner resulting in this host event. And I do hope that the messages, recommendations, and the illustrations of innovative engagement by higher education institutions in sustainable development goals will be carried forward by AIU to the World Higher Education Conference of UNESCO taking place in Barcelona in the month of May. This is the third World Higher Education Conference and is taking place after 2009. And it is an important landmark event where the stories, the recommendations, the examples, and the strategies being deliberated through these conversations will be presented in an international gathering of UNESCO in Barcelona. I do hope that will be possible. I have made a short presentation. I'm going to try and put it into this screen. If you will give me a second, and then now, can you see this all, please?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir, we can see, sir.
Thank you very much. So let me move on. Actually, Professor Dinesh Singh and I have interacted a few times, and I find his ideas so inspiring and his stories and examples. He is a mathematician, but he speaks in the language of an educator from his heart. So I want to just build on some of the ideas that he presented. And obviously, there are many resonance in this as well. So let me move the slide now. If I can move the slide.
May use the down arrow key, sir.
Okay. It's sort of a stuck, I feel. Let me see.
Unshare and then share again.
Okay. That may be the, stop sharing and then start again. Okay. And then I can put the slideshow and okay. Now let me start by the three critical mandates in the National Education Policy 2020, which provide a particularly relevant approach to inclusion in higher education. I consider them foundational pillars. Flexible curricula and...
Sir, you may please go to the second slide, sir. Use the left side of your screen, go to slide number 2, it will come, sir.
Oh, okay.
Scroll it down. I think since you're not in a presentation mode.
Can
Just
you
go to
see
the
that now?
No, sir, not yet. Go to the second one, sir.
I have,
Have we got his slides here?
Will you click on the second slide?
Just go to the second one, sir.
okay, it is showing second to me, but
Oh.
perhaps not to you.
But are you using? Have you brought it into the full mode? What is it called?
Yeah, the full mode.
Full screen mode?
Yeah, but
Oh,
It is not in full screen, sir. You can
It's-
use otherwise the left side.
I can see the left side arrows.
Sir, would you like me to share it for you?
Please, can you share
that
that?
might be a better idea.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you very much. I may have connectivity problems, I guess, that may sometimes hold the slides.
Can
That
you
would be
stop
good.
sharing, sir?
I'll stop share. Thank you very much. Basically, what I was explaining was the mandates that have been provided through the National Education Policy. Can you see that now? Is it visible?
Yes, sir. We can.
Yes,
Okay, thank you very
absolutely.
much. Thank you. So the point that Professor Dinesh Singh was making is design a curriculum which is flexible, but also provides multimodal entries. And this is important in the context of the diversity of young population that we have in the country, because they are entering higher education not necessarily in a singular mode from high school to undergraduate to postgraduate, but they are also coming in between with experience, practical experience, field internships. There are occasions when personal and family situations create a break from continuing the studies. I think this approach is very well recommended in national education policy, and I hope it will become foundational. The second very interesting and perhaps a distinctive feature of national education policy is linking lifelong learning and higher education. Lifelong learning, and I call it life-wide learning. Historically, lifelong learning framework has been restricted to adult education and literacy, as if it is meant for those who could not complete schooling or higher education and had to be supported independently. But in the last few years, and more clearly during the pandemic, we have now seen young people, even people in later stages of life, developing professional interests, careers, opportunities where they need to invest in learning. And our higher education system, our tertiary education system, should be such that it enables people to join in a framework of lifelong learning, come back to learning, but come back to learning which is determined by their interests and their stage in life and the context in which they are. And that is a very interesting and important foundational principle. The third principle that I see very valuable in national education policy is the calling for global citizenship. Our information technology today has made access to information and developments around the world relatively instant and easy. However, our appreciation of the world, even our appreciation of the context of within the nation, the diversity, the richness, the heritage, this has been a bit weak when students grow up and become young adults. I think the national education policy's recommendation on linking higher education to developing a perspective and an appreciation of global citizenship, a sort of a Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam idea that has been in our history, but how can it be brought into the practice of higher education in our institutions? The second set of slides I want to bring to you is in preparation for the World Higher Education Conference 2022 of UNESCO, a group of experts focused on sustainable development goals and the role of HEIs. I find their first recommendation, they made three broad recommendations, and let me highlight the first one. It is amazing how resonating it is to what Professor Dinesh Singh was saying and what we have now in our national education policy. Stronger and continuous engagement with societal actors. Higher education not restricted within the boundary walls of the campus or in the laboratories or libraries or on the laptops, but higher education in continuous, regular engagement with other societal actors, communities, industries, local governments. And once you engage with societal actors, your focus shifts to societal challenges and opportunities. And therefore, your learning in higher education begins to move you to finding solutions and innovations for the same. The second recommendation, and this is actually a recommendation that reinforces the perspective of participatory research. The perspective of participatory research is that knowledge resides in many sites of society. Higher education institutions, research bodies are one site, more endowed site, more privileged site, but knowledge also resides in everyday life. It resides in communities. Knowledge resides in local organizations, in farmers groups, in women's groups, and in particularly in our indigenous and tribal communities throughout the country. And this expert group has recommended that diverse ways of knowing, a sort of a fostering epistemic dialogue, not limiting ourselves to the epistemology of modern science. And this recommendation also resonates with the recent UNESCO recommendation on open science. In November 2021, UNESCO, along with 193 member governments, including our own, agreed to a recommendation on open science, and I would encourage you to take a look at that recommendation. For the first time in the definition of open science, in the framework of open science, UNESCO is appealing to us to bring multiple ways of knowing from experience, knowing from practice, experiential knowledge, knowledge derived from generations of practice, knowledge in the communities, and build on that, not negate it, not exclude it, not dismiss it. And this has become very important in the context of dealing with both SDGs and climate change. A number of scientists are beginning to recognize that indigenous knowledge, the knowledge of our indigenous communities on water, land, forest, other life forms, has been an important source of living in harmony in the planet. A challenge which is relevant for all young people as they grow up into a world which is going to be increasingly distressed through climate changes. The third recommendation of this group, once again, echoing what National Education Policy said, but also what Professor Dinesh Singh was just highlighting, is inter and transdisciplinary ways of producing and teaching knowledge. We need to find ways by which students of engineering can interact on issues of sociology, community development, and vice versa. In the early days of IIT Kanpur, where I went for my electronics engineering, we used to have in the 10 semesters, 10 courses of humanities and social sciences. And that, as a student at that time, we resisted because we came for engineering. But later on in our careers and in our lifespan, we began to appreciate that. And I hope that the model that Professor Dinesh Singh was describing would be experimented with in different ways in different higher education institutions in the country. Next slide, please. So, 4 key ideas I picked up on SDG 4, which is beyond enrollment. Inclusion is not about just enrollment of diversity, enrollment of different ethnic groups. Inclusion can only be when we open the possibility of learning in different ways, open to learning from, in, and with society. And the recent mandate of UGC on fostering social responsibility and community engagement is actually one of the ways in which learning in and with society is being taken forward now by UGC in the current academic year. The second and very important idea underlying achievement of sustainable development goals is partnership. And as I was just mentioning, supportive partnerships with local actors to achieve SDGs. Local actors, local governments, local communities, local schools, how can higher education students and faculty develop such a relationship such that while they learn, they also begin to address and solve problems. The third key, of course, is what investing in lifelong learning of teachers and their trainers. This is important because teachers are the anchor in facilitating learning. Their style of teaching will have to change. They will have to do this much more in interaction with communities, a more interactive, facilitative, group-based learning, which also builds on local knowledge. And local knowledge, as we all know, resides in local cultures and local language. And therefore, one of the critical issues in inclusion going forward will be how do we learn from local culture, local language, and integrate the same in what our curriculum and courses are designed to. Final point I picked up, this is something that on the 150th anniversary of birth of Mahatma Gandhi, we talked about in 2019 in a conference in partnership with AIU, educating body, heart, and mind together. And I heard some of the conversations in the inaugural session, how this principle of not just educating the mind, but also educating the heart is important. Our values, our norms, and our principles are the ones which will take us through life, while our competencies and skills will be providing the vehicle on which we ride. So those are some of the key messages that I want to share with you and see how they resonate with the national education policy as well as UNESCO's recommendations, and how we can take them forward in application to sustainable development goals in the year ahead. The last slide is basically some links to materials and useful resources, which I'll leave behind with you. Thank you very much. And I look forward to our conversation.
Thank you very much, sir. Very comprehensive and so concisely put. It was a treat to listen to you about the way the SDGs are getting aligned with our thought system. And so it was drum beats then, and now it's heart, mind, and body together. Wonderful, sir. And again, it's happening that when I make my presentation, a lot of it is already covered. So I think for me, it will be simple to say ditto what my seniors have already talked about. Thank you very much, sir. Now we move to the next speaker, Dr. Vedahi Vijay Kumar, Vice Chancellor, Mother Teresa Women's University. First, I'll request the compere to please introduce her, and then, Madam, you can make your presentation.
I have the pleasure of introducing to you Vedahi Vijay Kumar, who is serving as the VC at Mother Teresa Women's University, Kodaikanal. Her academics are quite impressive, BE in Electronics and Communication, ME Applied Electronics, and PhD from MIT Chennai. She's a professor in Computer Science, Information Technology and Electronics at Anna University and BIT Chennai. She was a task team member of Anna University Microsatellite. She has executed several sponsored research projects in the ICT area. She has several publications in national and international journals. Her research domains, which are indeed the need of the hour, are wireless sensor network, networking, image processing, and network security. Over to you, Dr. Vedahi Vijay Kumar. Just one small note. Her name means a furrow, which is indeed an alternate name for Sita, who's from the Ramayana epic. Thank you.
Respected President Tiruvasagam, respected General Secretary Pankaj Mittal, respected chairperson of today's session, Professor Sunil Rai, respected VCs, it is indeed a great pleasure in presenting the summary of what we have discussed in Coimbatore South Zone, which was having a theme of realizing SDGs through Higher Education Institute for ensuring inclusive and equitable quality education. So here I am which is next? So the three pillars of sustainable development are basically economic viability, social equity, environmental protection. And when we see this, we can see we are having the circles which are basically talking about environment protection, equity, and viability. And education is therefore crucial for the achievement of sustainable development, and all VCs, we are agreeable for this. Now, people talk about gross enrollment ratio, and I'm coming from Tamil Nadu. Our gross enrollment ratio is 52, and government is adopting lots of plans to increase the gross enrollment ratio. And when we see gross enrollment ratio of India, which is 20 plus, whereas we are 50 plus, and the policy adopted are basically we are promoting women to come forward for higher education. So basically they are given gold for their thali, that means Mangal Sutra. Then for marriage, 30,000 rupees given for rural women in order to promote the higher education. But the question here is, they are coming for studies. Are we in a position to say that the students are quality-wise branded for getting the top-notch level research work or the jobs? So here, rise in GER is by various articles of Indian Constitution, free and compulsory education. So this is what is happening. And however, we can see the out of school children are basically 3.22 crore. And here, this particular slide shows that we are allowing children to study, but those who are scoring less marks, they are not in a position to go forward, whereas the others are going to a private school. The moment we talk about equity, how for these animals to climb the tree is a question. And here, the higher education institute must take up steps to promote researchers in school education, restructure the curriculum and focus on capacity building, integrate quality and inclusionary practices in institution policy level. All these things were discussed in the previous speakers. And here, the major roles of higher education 2030 vision is production of knowledge about strategic development goals, teaching in line with SDG, transforming curriculum, offering science-based solution to the problems. So here we can see the picture which says they increase the number of people with relevant skills for financial success, target 4.4. How it is going to be relevant? No education, that means no unemployment. Up to 5th standard, unemployment is 0.7, and 6th to 9th, 1.5% unemployment. 10 to 12 pass, 10% unemployment. Graduate and higher, we have around 19.4 unemployment, which is telling the education, whatever we go, whether it is reducing unemployment or increasing unemployment. That is basically the debate. So that's why people are expecting skill-based education. And when we see this research, India is having only 252.7. We have miles to go. And to ensure inclusive and quality technical professional education, unbiased selection of faculty members, the professional must have skills and provide more diversified choices for the student, teach candidate in different professions, good practices and training pedagogies, world-class infrastructure are must. And when we see the collaborativeness, we are having the research and innovation, professional practice, teaching and learning, and we need to have industry-ready graduates, and we are having lots of training program for the people to undergo training so that they can go to jobs straight away in campus itself. Then research informed teaching, new knowledge. So we are having achieving outcomes, collaboration plus partnership, as discussed by previous two speakers. So we need to have system thinking competency, anticipatory competency, normative competency, transdisciplinary collaborative competency, critical thinking, creativity, self-awareness, integrated problem-solving competency. And in India, Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, MSDE is doing the coordinating skill development activity, and NSDC is promoting skill development by establishing institutes of skill development, and National Skill Development Agency, NSDA, it coordinates the efforts of government and private sector. So what we need is basically the overarching institutional activity, mobility, quality, lifelong learning, student involvement, societal interaction, demands on research. So these are basically needed to ensure the inclusiveness. Activities and faculty and disciplinary level, we are having the course development, program development, curriculum, pedagogical development, skill formations, student-driven activity, demands on research. And in order to have sustainable future, we need energy, creativity, and initiative of young people. We need institutions that support interaction and cooperation. And we may also need new types of discipline, post-discipline, that show how social and environment and the economic aspect must be linked. For example, engineering is linked with sociology. So actually we have a sociology department, and recent seminar, sociology department never wanted to adapt artificial intelligence or data science or data analytics. This is what is given in the website. We told the students and other members to collect statistics, put it in the cloud, do the analysis and identify the weak points and adapt technology to find out solution based on sociology perspective. So here, the women, we have a problem. The problems are basically women are less educated, and when we see male is 75% and female is 62%, 2020 shows that female are only 70%. That means 1/3 of the population are still to get education. And CMCA, non-profit organization, and it surveys gender equality, and it founds gender discrimination is widespread, deep-rooted, and 54% of the women also agree that they are fit for household. 44% agree that they have no choice to accept violence, and education no way is making them more critical. This is what is a problem. And if this is going to be for rural, urban, and it may be more for rural also. So what we need is labor force participation, advanced level of education. We have 79.93 for male, and female, it is only half of that, 31. So female education and task plus job needs to be increased. So we have gender disparity region wise, HEI based gross enrollment ratio disparities also there. Efforts to attract socio-economically disadvantaged group, that is SEDG, especially scheduled tribe for higher education. Efforts to improve gender parity index GPI, especially in SGDGS, measures on online and ODL education and higher education through Indian languages. These are basically the recommendation, and these recommendations are from Professor Tyagarajan, former Madras University Chancellor, and in the last South Zone conference, he has prepared all these recommendation. I got these slides from AIU, and I'm projecting this. That means the strategies for gender parity, these can be tried out. Pooling of financial resources, extending the period of re-entry, strengthening of Women's Studies Center, gender cell at higher education, amenities for safe and secure environment, scholarship, freeship, hostel reservation, and weightage in accreditation for gender parity. The next recommendation is why to focus on socio-economically disadvantageous group. India Sustainable Development Goal rank is 120 behind Bhutan, Sri Lanka, Nepal, and Bangladesh. So not just ranking, India's SDG index score in 2021 is lesser than 2019. That means there is a decreasing trend. More other countries have improved index values. One of the many reasons is insufficient focus on SEDGs in enhancing their educational status, that is gross enrollment ratio and GPI. So next thing is model degree colleges with residential campuses, logistics support to students from SCGDS, establishment tribal engineering and professional colleges among STs, conducting rapid household education census, reservation for meritorious SEDG students, and learn while learn scheme should be adopted. The next recommendation is facilitation of SEDGs to enhance GER, targeting feeder group, loan from bank, Vidyanjali scheme, development of content, pool resources, hostel, and CSR support. That means educational cess to be allocated to by Government of India for higher education. So these supporting mechanisms are possible. Here also we have problems when NAC score is lesser than A grade, RUSA is not given, UGC is not funding. After 12th plan, it is only RUSA. So obviously, higher education institution should improve the quality, and obviously then only they will get funding, and accessibility support, Divyanjans, and financial resources from other ministry such as MOMA, MOSJG, MOTA. So here,
Can we wind up quickly, madam?
last slide.
Okay, thank you.
So this is basically promote online education and NAD, virtual classroom, distribution of devices, and online education. It can be done by BharatNet, UGC outreach program. And here, Indian languages play a main role, access to technical book via Indian languages. And this is the innovation ecosystem adopted in Mother Teresa. We are helping the local people by providing geotag for Malai Pundu, that means hill garlic, and we are promoting the students to become entrepreneur, and it is possible for us to have more students enroll in our university, and that is the reason we could get A grade. And definitely we are in a position to provide several scholarships, promoting placement drive, and having networking of all the institutions to have global visibility of our university. And thank you very much for the opportunity. And once again, I thank AAU for giving the opportunity to project the solutions and the recommendations provided by the previous people. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam, for giving us the way forward. I now invite the chairperson, Professor Sunil Rai, to give his closing remarks.
After this, okay. So what I am going to do is make my presentation. Is it on in this? Which one is to go ahead? We have had some wonderful presentations by previous three speakers, enriching, very comprehensive, and it has made my job simple because my presentation is almost like, so as a chairperson, I am required to make a summary, and I think my presentation will be a good summary of what has been already presented. I come from Dehradun. I put this slide so that, you know, it's also a invitation to all of you whenever you are on that side to please come to Dehradun. Are you changing? I think you only change it. Which one it is? This one. No? So the emphasis is on
Professor Rai, it's not on the screen. Sorry to interrupt, but I can't see it on the main screen.
Are you doing screen share?
Yeah, that's okay. Fine. Thanks.
Got it?
Yeah.
Okay. So much has been talked about higher education and SDGs. Impact of universities on SDGs also has been covered very comprehensively. The list is given here: critical for sustainable development, university education better protects against poverty. It's all about innovation, culture, mind, body, as it has been talked about. Research, skilling had been, of course, emphasized by the previous speaker. We are increasingly getting into a situation that maybe in 4 or 5 years' time, the degrees may lose their relevance, and skills is something which will become very, very important. Partnerships and collaborations have also been emphasized by all the speakers before me. Here is a model which actually summarizes something that we follow at UPS, and we had created this during the start of pandemic. So just 4 aspects of design, delivery, administering, and collaborations. All have been covered very extensively by the previous speakers. Dr. Dinesh Singh talked about design your own degree, we practice it. Project-based learnings. Start Your Startup is a compulsory program course for irrespective of what program the student is going through at UPS, whether it's law, whether it's business or engineering. I would like to mention here that sports, cultural sensitization, value sensitization, and sensitization to environment is not an extracurricular activity. It's not also a co-curricular activity. It's an in-curricular program, which means there are credits attached to all these kind of activities, and I will share how do we do it. So the curriculums, as was emphasized by all the previous speakers, need to be redesigned, rethought about from the SDG perspective. The second one is when you start delivering, this also has been covered. Dr. Dinesh Singh talked about it. There is, of course, self-learning, assisted learning, and then, of course, practice. Let's not teach these students what they already know. So let's use technology, blended mode, online, self-learning mode, They are very intelligent, bright children, and therefore we need not teach them. So basically, it should be discussions in the class and more of practice-based learning. These have to be co-designed and co-delivered. Co-designed is fine, co-delivered with experts. That point also was emphasized. You combine with NGOs, you combine with corporates. It was talked about in Dr. Dinesh Singh's experience at SP Jain, Bombay, where I used to be the director before getting into the university system. We send students for a 2-month internship, social internship, and not for corporate internship. So it is with the experts. Evaluations also were talked about. Evaluations have to be continuous. We have to move away from the summative as is being already talked about. But the important aspect is let our evaluations be at levels 5 and 6 of Bloom's taxonomy, where we are challenging students, their creativity and creating solutions rather than checking their mugging up capabilities. When you're administering them, there has to be a normalization, pre-semester learning. There are issues of languages with students who come from not so affluent places, language problems. So there are normalizing of capabilities. Some people are not good in maths. So we need to, of course, have some remedial classes before. So pre-semester learning, we follow it. Then financial support to all the students. We have never turned away any student who is not being able to pay up their fees. We give them enough time and we support them with scholarships, get it through partners. A lot of our alumni are getting into that kind of funding for support. Project Shakti is something which is echoes what Madam was just now talking about. We have 30% scholarship to all girl children at UPS, and we support girl children. We support our lady colleagues. We are getting into this ratio. So already we have moved to a favorable 30% ratio of girls, ladies in almost all cadres, students, staff, as well as senior leadership at the university. Support to challenge through academic scholarships. We, of course, have, I will be sharing some experiences. So we need to support people who need it for bringing that inclusivity. Collaboration, it was talked about, Tandon sir said about let the learning be from within the society. So we've got 14 villages in the block which we have adopted. We work with them for skills upgradation, for health awareness. We are, of course, this 1 year supporting particularly the young girls who are attaining puberty to train them in menstrual hygiene and so on and so forth, providing them also napkins, etc. Then we are, of course, partnering with state government, and I will share a few of the examples for environment need, for economic projects, economic generation in hills, in Kumar, and of course, skills upgradation, health education, and so on and so forth. Partners with other institutions, with research clusters we have formed in Dehradun. We are particularly trying to do research which will be useful to the community here and now. So we are focusing on applied research, which will help the community here and now. Working with a lot of NGOs, we work with HESCO, which is trying to revive rivers. In Uttarakhand, we have a problem of drying up rivers, which we are trying to work with them and with our students engaged with the Urja Nigam and so on and so forth. So this one is a model that we follow called ABLE, is basically academic blueprint for learning experience. So we have traded the 164 credits that an engineering degree requires. About 80 to 90 of them go to the core, then go for specializations, and about another 30 credits and the remaining for minor specializations. So a student, what Dr. Dinesh Singh talked about, design your own degree. Engineering student can pick up credits from business, can pick up credits from design. They can pick up from multiple schools, but if they do pick up in a particular basket, then they get a minor. This is an initiative all students of UPS in summers have to go for a social internship. We have tied up with more than 450 NGOs across the country. We find the NGOs which are closer to the place of residence of student, and then they all go and work with these NGOs during the summer term. It's compulsory for the School for Life we created, where we are investing about 40 credits, which we pulled out from those 164 in life skill courses, signature courses, example of signature courses, AI and ML. Whether you're doing law, whether you are doing medicine, whether you're doing any course, artificial intelligence is something which is required for every kind of learning. Exploratory courses, you design your own degree, social internships, and then you continue. Himalayan Fellowship is when you go and help the community. And in final semester, we are giving 3 options. Either you do research, you're already placed, or you can do an internship, or an entrepreneurship. We support you. We have got our own accelerator where we support with the funding to the students and handhold them to set up their some of the research that we do in the renewable energy. And I would just like to talk about that waste to wealth. All these are student and faculty led initiatives which we are doing. During COVID, the students and faculty had actually engaged in creating low cost solutions. The ventilator that we had created is now being used in Uttarakhand. It's patented. Material handling robots for particularly dispensing the waste, the medical waste, and so on and so forth. Automated detection screening. These are already placed at several places which have been created. So directed research towards environment and support. And I talked about this Shakti initiative. We do it at various levels. In fact, our program now, CII, I'm having a meeting in the second week of next month where CII is endorsing our program, where we will do this program for the women from corporate to make them move up. I talked about the Shakti program, the Project Payal, where, as Madam had talked about, we are supporting these young girls from the socially challenged villages nearby. There is a school called Purkul, which we have adopted. 12 children, we take them right from their nursery and then we take them right till their higher education. Project Protsahan, which is, you see here a gentleman whose son next to him, they just couldn't afford. We have actually arranged for their meritorious scholarship. Several other initiatives that we keep doing. We've got School of Health Sciences in the area of drug discovery and so on and so forth. Active role during COVID, you can see me here supporting the Chief Minister, the Governor, and even the military hospital. I come from the Navy. So of course I was trying to help my own community. There was a severe problem about oxygen generators, and we actually worked. The students went with these to the remotest places in hills of Kumau and helped the society. We are of course working in climate change. I would just like to talk about this pine needles project. We have 2 problems in Uttarakhand. One is about rivers drying. All small rivers, they are all only the now seasonal rivers. There is, by way of check dams and by way of treatment of the areas next to the river, that we are able to be working with Dr. Joshi. He is Padma Bhushan, and we are working with him. The pine project is, we collect these pine needles. Government of Uttarakhand is giving incentives to villagers to collect the needles. Then we have actually patented a concept. We can either convert them into briquettes, or we can use those pine needles to even convert them into oil. We have also created a chula, which is now being used in these villages. There are 13 villages talked about, Duma and other villages. These are also remote villages where these, so pine needles which were covering the land and therefore increasing the water table, or rather depleting the water table, now is becoming an income generating activity. So such projects the students are taking is what I wanted to share with you. I think it's basically all about resolve. As we heard from the previous 3 speakers of mine, it's if we all put our attention to, there is actually no dearth of encouragement, no dearth of funding, as long as we are going to find it. And the good news is that the youngsters today are sensitized towards that. We have a lot of hope from these youngsters. It's just that we need to work with them. We need to combine with them, sensitize them, and find the drum beats, as was being talked about by Dr. Dinesh Singh, so that they start marching in their life for the betterment of society. With this, we have closed this session, unless there are some questions, please. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You can just unshare this now and we can get Sir, are you online? Dr. Dinesh Singh, sir?
Yes.
There is a question to you,
Sir,
sir.
Dr. Dinesh Singh,
Sorry, you'll have to speak up. For some reason, you're not audible.
Okay. My name is Christy, Vice Chancellor from Christy University, Tanjavur in Tamil Nadu.
Right.
You mentioned about Sachin Tendulkar. I have often cited this example, as well as Dhoni's example. Okay, sir. Now, Sachin couldn't reach college. Dhoni went to college. But then, so many people rallied after him to enable him get the degree, because he was always playing for India, but he could not be regularly attending classes and all that. Now the thing is, there are so many Dhonis and Tendulkars getting into our university system, but then because of our rigid framework, our regulations, we say 180 credits are to be earned if you want to get a BTech, and 150 if you want to become a BSc, and 75% attendance. What we are doing is we are killing Dhonis, we are killing Tendulkars. So there has got to be a separate system under which, even in the beginning years, these talents will be identified and special provision should be made available for them, so that we don't insist on our rigor in the system. Let's not say you should also get 180 credits. What happens? His passion is killed, and this fellow becomes, very anxious, and is not able to go through the system. Parents shout at him, teachers shout at him. What we do? We are killing Dhonis and Tendulkars. So let us not just stop with rhetoric, sir. Let us have a system in our universities which would identify right at the beginning. You told about designing a special course. Okay, sir. Now this special course, nobody is going to join. They would want to join BTech Electronics and Communication, BTech Mechanical Engineering. But their passion is killed. So let us have a system wherein such talents should be identified right in the first year. And startup ideas, these creative ideas can be encouraged right in the beginning. Let us get them out of the rigor of the system and help them really achieve the SDGs. Thank you, sir.
Sure. Oh, I didn't see a question there, but yes, your statement is welcome. I think it's worthwhile for all of us, except that, I'm very wary of identifying talent. I really don't know what is talent. What I like is perseverance, dedication, motivation. And that is always, in my experience in life, given results. And so I don't want to label someone as specially talented or talented or that. Let's just give them good opportunities. And number two, the national education policy incorporates enough freedom. It is up to us to grab that freedom. My worry is that our institutions somehow, for whatever reason, and I'm not criticizing anyone, are reluctant or for some reason are hindered from grabbing this academic freedom that the national education policy accords. It allows you to include for credit. So suppose someone is studying to be a mathematician, maybe, don't just take this as a hard and fast example, and he plays cricket. Well, the cricket, it has, the way I understood the national education policy, and based on what we used to do at Delhi University, you would even get credit for mathematics if you played cricket regularly. I think Professor Rai illustrated that very ably. That we have to, there's nothing like co-curricular or extracurricular, it's all within the curriculum. And so many of all your suggestions are there for the taking if we collectively create awareness and create an environment that gives us a handle to bring these things in. That's all.
I would replace the word talent with spark. Let us identify the spark in the students and encourage them, get them out of the academic rigor and help them become real Dhonis.
There is nothing like academic rigor. And what is academics? Let me just tell you, Mendel's work and genetics comes from gardening. Will you include gardening as academics? Or Darwin's work came from the ship journeys that he took. There was no classes. In fact, Darwin says that he learned more in the pubs of Cambridge than he did in the lecture rooms. So I think somewhere we need to redefine academics itself. The whole world is a classroom. If we understand that and the national education policy allows us to do that, it'll be good for us. But thank you. Thank you very much.
I'll just comment on this, that what sir just now said. Basically, there is enough academic freedom. The needle is moving through NEP now. The provisions, I was in UGC last week and also in AICT. I think they are encouraging us to actually start finding this. And actually, I'm just agreeing with Dr. Dinesh Singh. Let's not worry about identifying talents, and let us just create an environment where these students find their own spark and their own drumbeat.
Right.
Get out of their way. Let us get out of their way, is what I would suggest, right?
Yeah, so you're so right, sir. I mean, if you remember, I also said, let the teacher recede to a mentor, not someone who gives you notes on the blackboard in the classroom.
All right. We have one question here in the hall, and then I will come back to you, sir. Vice Chancellor, IFHE. I'll come
Yes.
back to you, sir.
Good morning, sir. Good. I am Mahendra Reddy. I am the Vice Chancellor of ICFI Foundation for Higher Education. The question is to Professor Dinesh Singh. Am I audible, sir?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
First of all, it was an excellent presentation, excellent session. My hearty congratulations. My question, sir, is relating to design your own course by the students. You know, there are they capable of designing their own course? Do they know? Do they have the full maturity? What are the constraints and what is the procedure you have in mind when you give so much freedom to the students?
So I should have explained that for each student, there is a mentor. And if you think this is very heavy and takes enormous effort, it doesn't. So it isn't that the student gets into the classroom and says, I've designed my degree. It doesn't work like that.
Right.
It's very graded, but the student has the freedom to eventually end up with something that is very close to the student's art, and the degree will reflect that. That was the purpose behind it.
And that's approved by the academic council. It's not just...
Oh, yes, sir. I mean, we ran a full-fledged accredited program. So let me give you an illustration. In our first year in the BTech Humanities Design Your Degree program was a student who just joined our program. In his second semester, he became, because we had exposed him to linguistics, but in a very holistic manner. So we brought in Panini, excuse me, and we brought in some mathematics and some computer simulation. And his mind began to get more and more interested in that, and we could see his drumbeat is awakening. This is a first year undergraduate, just out of high school. By the time he entered the third semester, this student began to take credit from postgraduate programs in linguistics of the University of Delhi and was topping in the class there. Can you believe that?
Fantastic. Yeah.
But we gave him the freedom to do that. There was opposition. If you think I just waved a wand and everything happened, it doesn't. The most conservative people are us academics. हम लोग सब बहुत conservative हैं. लेकिन फिर भी we were able to reason, and how can an undergraduate take a postgraduate class? मेरा ये कहना है कि अगर वो लेता है और क्षमता रखता है तो क्यों रोकते हैं? एक्सपेरिमेंट तो करके देखें. And he topped that course in linguistics for a postgraduate class. So and eventually he moved into computational linguistics. But my point is this: we have to somehow give them the freedom, जो प्रोफेसर राय ने भी कहा, कि अपना मार्ग तय करे, और हम लोग हैं उसको समझाएंगे. कुछ हम भी कोई, we are not the last word, हम भी सीखते हैं साहब. मैं अपने स्टूडेंट से बहुत सीखता हूँ. One of my most cited research papers published in the top 5 journals of the world in mathematics, that idea came to me when I was teaching a class. और students सवाल पूछ रहे थे, and I was racking my mind कि इसमें कौन सा mathematical argument से क्या होगा, and suddenly it flashed before me, okay, this will lead me into a problem where I was stuck for at least 6 months.
Great.
So, सबसे सीखने को मिलता है, it's not कि हम ही सिखाते हैं.
Wonderful. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
We have
Thank
one
you.
question here, sir.
Thank
We
you.
will have a question in the hall.
No, no.
Yes,
because
please, go ahead.
I am Professor Syed Aqil Ahmad. I'm an alumni of the same university, served 42 years as
Wonderful.
a faculty. Now at present, I'm a Vice Chancellor of local university in Uttar Pradesh. My question is to Dr. Rajesh Tandon.
Tandon, sir, are you online? Dr. Tandon, sir? Dr. Tandon has left, but we will try and answer between Dr. Dinesh Singh, myself, and Madam.
No, this is pertaining to, maybe I'll have to have
Yes.
even to link my question with
No.
Honorable Vice Chancellor.
Go ahead. I have a question.
It was a very illustrative presentation, and he was talking about the knowledge-driven actions. I wanted to just get more enumerated on this point. It is a wonderful point, and combining with what she is mentioning about the SDGs as a social equity. Everyone was talking about the society, but now she has used the words social equity or societal equity, and that is very important. How we can just combine these two, I wanted to ask a general question. It's a wonderful concept you have presented. One is the knowledge. Most of these universities, we are either data-driven or information-driven, and he's talking about knowledge-driven actions. And in her presentation, she was mentioning about the social equity. And when you're talking of equality and equity to simple terms, equity is justice. And that is a wonderful concept that we can do it. And the universities have the best role to play. I am a little bit fixed. I wanted to get more clarity if you can. That's all.
Would you like to answer this, Madam?
Sir, equality is giving access to everyone at the same time. Equity is basically different. And the equity, as far as our university is concerned, we say that we are having a motto that is Sari Nigar Samanam, towards equal status. So if we want to have equal status, then we should be given much more for coming up to that level.
I think so. It's an important, I'll take one more here. It's a very important concept that has come in this today's discussion. You are talking of equality and equity, I understand. Equality is, for example, can I just take 1 minute?
Please.
I'll just make a difference between equality and equity. And she has brought the concept of equity. It's a wonderful concept, and the knowledge-driven actions. That is absolutely important for universities now, particularly more so in India, combining these two concepts. When you're talking, let us say, I'll take an example, how we explain the difference between equality and, I'm a chemistry background man, not so, sociology is my very interesting as a hobby. Let us say that you have a school, the children wants to see a procession, but teacher say will not go outside. But they can just climb the wall or something like that. As a teacher, she will keep one bench for 4th standard student, let us say, for example. Every student will climb and they'll try to peep in outside and look the procession. The teacher has done the equality, but there is one person who is short. The motto is to see that the children should see the procession, but mere putting on
Good morning.
will not be. There is
So we
one
are
short
meeting at
fellow.
3.
You will have to put them a small stool so that that small child can also climb on that.
Yeah.
And this is equity. That is a wonderful concept that she has brought in. And when we are talking of the university in present
No,
stage,
we are not looking at candidates today. No.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead, please.
and if you are taking of
You
the
see, we will finalize the
universities
criteria
up till now,
today.
including our
Because
curriculum,
आगे
whatever
जा रही
we are
also will
talking
go,
of
we have to
choice-based and
explain to
everything,
him that this
either
is
it
the-
is the data-driven or
Come to a
information-driven. Talking about the knowledge-driven action, that is a wonderful concept which has struck my mind. Is there any other people who are in the hall can also focus on these two, combine these two concepts of knowledge-driven actions with social equity? That will do the justice for a diversity and a very vast country like ours.
I agree with you, no less, sir. I love the example that you gave about putting that stool over the bench. And I will share my experience that the person who was giving me 2-3 years back, 2.5 years back when I joined this institution, Sheikh is his name, and he was serving me coffee. I keep fast on Tuesdays, so he actually brought some fruits which were cut in a beautiful style. It was better than any 5-star. I asked him about what do you do and things like that. pleases me to tell you, sir, today he is working as stint manager with us. And we supported him, extra classes and things like that. Some courses he had not taken, half degree he had left. There are examples around us, and it is for us to provide those tools. And there's nothing stopping, as Dr. Dinesh Singh sir said, there is nothing stopping. We as vice chancellors have tremendous powers in our pen, and we have to actually start using it. And yeah, this equity has to come. And if these barriers were not broken, if these what rules sir was talking about, if this credit system, attendance system was there, there wouldn't have been a Gyaneshwari. Sant Gyanesha did it at the age of 17, which is a document which is equal to 30 PhDs put together, I suppose. So I think we have to remove these roadblocks, and we have had a wonderful discussion. I would like to thank all the illustrious speakers who have contributed today, Professor Dinesh Singh, Dr. Rajesh Tandon, Dr. Vedahi, and all those who have contributed. Thank you very much, all the vice chancellors and all of us who have interacted. I would once again like to thank AIU, our president and Madam Mittal and all her team. We've got a wonderful team at AIU who actually keep supporting us. Ramaji and your entire team is outstanding, madam. So we have had a wonderful panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I would like to thank the chair, Professor Rai.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Much, Professor Rai, for sharing with us the ABLE model to enable SDG 3. That was very impressive, sir. I think the need of the hour is we need to sensitize socially our young minds and also teach them empathy and tolerance. Well, at this moment, at this juncture, I'm compelled to quote Nelson Mandela, quote, "Education is the strongest weapon which we can use to change the world." And I think this is one, have already put many steps in this direction, but I think cohesive thinking is very, very essential. So with this, I invite Dr. Pankaj Mittal to kindly do the honors and give the speakers a small token of appreciation and remembrance. So with this, we come to the end of the technical session 5, and we take a short break for tea and reassemble much before 11:30, because 11:30 is the time for the valedictory address.
मिनट तो चली गया अगर आप
University of Mysore. Ellarigu namaskara. Good morning to you all. Kindly bear with us. We are about 20 minutes behind schedule. Would all agree if I say that 3 days flew like 3 hours, thanks to the packed schedule prepared by the Association of Indian Universities, the smooth running of the 96th annual meet, and the National Conference of the Vice Chancellors on the topic Realizing Sustainable Development Goals through Higher Education Institutions is largely due to the meticulous planning and execution guided by the President of AIU and Secretary General, ably assisted by the Nodal Officer of the University of Mysore. To align governance to sustainability, the Supreme Court asked the government if it plans to introduce an Indian Environmental Service, IES, based on the 2014 TSR Subramanian report, and a plea arguing that environmental clearances require special expertise that a regular bureaucrat may not possess. The universities are the hub. Universities and also the higher education institutions are the hub from where the experts emerge, and the ultra urgency created by the climate change has made the vigilance of the academia most crucial. This is borne out by the intense discussions and exchange of ideas that have taken place here in the 96th annual meet and the National Seminar on Realizing SDGs through HEIs. In any conference, the ideas are exchanged at a frenzied velocity, and their contours can only be fathomed and recollected in tranquility. This conference is no different. The presence of so many luminaries did really create a confluence of beautiful minds. We are thankful to all those who braved the weather and made it. We are equally beholden to those who contributed to the conference as speakers and participants from the comforts of their homes. The Mysore conferences are known to generate light than heat. We fondly hope the experts agree that this conference lived up to their expectations. To start off the valedictory proceedings, let me call upon the students of the University of Fine Arts College to render the invocation. The students are Shravanti KV, Kalyani HR, Manasa BP, and they are guided by Deepika Krishnamurthy, and all the students have been guided by Ms. Surya Prabha, their teacher. Over to the students.
जय जय देवी जय जग जननी जय जय सरस्वती माई जय जय देवी जय जग जननी जय जय सरस्वती माई जय जय देवी जय जय भवानी जय शर्वाणी जय त्रिभुवन सुखदाई जय जय भवानी जय शर्वाणी जय त्रिभुवन सुखदाई तेरो ही माया अनंत पार जा जय सरस्वती माई जय जय देवी तेरो ही रूप भयो सार्ध विद्या सुर नर चरण मनाई विद्या सुर नर चरण मनाई पद्मनाभ रूप चरण सरोरुह सेवक के मन बाई जय जय देवी जय जग जननी जय जय सरस्वती माई जय जय देवी थैंक यू
Thank you for rendering the invocation so soulfully. The Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor G. Hemant Kumar, the most accomplished computer scientist with a number of academic accolades, has been conducting big events, not only as Vice Chancellor, but even earlier as coordinator and convener of various academic wings of our university. The secret of his success is his amiable qualities and the capacity to take everybody along with him, always bringing to the consciousness of his colleagues that any event must be considered as a teamwork to succeed. That's how the events have been conducted so far in his leadership, and they have invariably been a success. I call upon our beloved Vice Chancellor, Professor G. Hemant Kumar, to deliver the welcome address.
Ellargu namaskara. Very good morning to you all. I have a pleasant task of welcoming the dignitaries on the dais and off the dais. First of all, let me express my deep gratitude to the President and office bearers of the and all Vice Chancellors for choosing the University of Mysore as the venue for 96th annual meet and national conference of the Vice Chancellors. Let me confess that I had some apprehensions about the smooth proceedings of the conference, since it happened immediately after 102nd annual convocation of our university. Though we are not strangers of holding the big events, the apprehensions was because of the Honorable Governor and Chancellor of Karnataka during the convocation, and Honorable Vice President of India along with the Governor during the inaugural session of 96th annual meet. Of course, the anxiety of winning the approval of the fellow Vice Chancellor was always there. But the background work was done by Dr. Mrs. Pankaj Mittal, the Secretary General of AIU, along ably aided by her team, melted away my mental burden. And I am grateful to Dr. Pankaj Mittal for easing the whole process. The minute-to-minute program during the inauguration session was a success. The Honorable Vice President, Shri M. Venkaiah Naidu ji, underlined the need to be more serious about achieving the sustainable development goals, since our records needs to be improved considering the index of 2021. Laying a lot of stress on the noble thoughts emanating from the ancient history of India like Nalanda, Takshashila, so on the Honorable Vice President A lot more can be derived from past experience to realize the contemporary goals. The Governor and the Chancellor, Sri Thawarchand Gehlot, emphasized the need of the focus on Atmanirbhar Bharat and said that national education policy should cater the needs of the youth of our country as they are the torchbearers of the future. I'm happy to recall the momentous issues touched upon by Sri T.S. Trimurti, the permanent representative of UN on his Foundation Day lecture of this year. It was graceful to him to have given time off amidst of the busy schedule to address the gathering of the Vice Chancellors. India can live up to the image of the Vishwa Guru if we are all gear up to train our youth in the required manner. Regarding the sessions and overall proceedings in this 96th annual meet and national conference of the Vice Chancellor, Professor N.K. Lokanath is going to present. We look forward, Dr. Mrs. Pankaj Mittal remark with eagerness, and she has the unique advantage of taking the stock of these meets in order to derive the guiding principles of higher education from the point of view of Association of Indian Universities. With this preamble, let me thank the dignitaries on the dais, each one of you in the audience. The President of the Association of Indian Universities, AIU, Colonel Dr. Tiruvasagam, was brought a rich experience and guide this nearly century-old organization serving the cause of the higher education. We have learned many invaluable things from him during the course of this meet, and the interactions with him would make the continuous hereafterwards, and this is for the benefit of the higher education. I welcome Colonel Dr. Tiruvasagam, the President of AIU and Vice Chancellor of Amit University, Chennai, very warmly for this function. Welcome you, sir. Guest of honor, Dr. J. Ramachandran, Chancellor of Amit University. In 70s, the youth of India, especially educated youths of India, was staring at hopelessness due to the lack of the jobs and cursing themselves getting educated. A young visionary, Mr. J. Ramachandran, could not tolerate this anymore. So he came out with a solution in the form of new era of education, Association of Educated Self-Employed Youth. And this complemented the government in the employment exchanges and in other forms. In 1993, he has set up an academy called Maritime Education and Training, an alternative to existing system of education. The point to note is, whatever he wanted to complete, he always wanted to be complement. With this guidance, the vision of AMET transformed to become first ever maritime deemed to be university in India. He extended his service to the medical education under aegis of Saraswati Ammal Educational and Charitable Trust. Dr. Ramachandran has established a 550-bed hospital cum medical college in Hapur, a socially backward area in Uttar Pradesh. Dr. Ramachandran entrepreneurial efforts have attracted many national and international awards. Ministry of Shipping, Government of India have bestowed him on Lifetime Achievement Award. York St. John's University has confirmed him honoris causa degree on him. Recently, Dr. J. Ramachandran has received the Lifetime Achievement Award in 2016 in his meritorious and exemplary contribution in global shipping industry. Sir, indeed, it is an honor to welcome you. Albert Einstein famously stated that one cannot solve a problem on the same level that was created. You have to rise above it to the next level. This was guided by Dr. G. Tiruvasagam, the person of academic and administrative eminence, who brought him his dynamic experience for 5 years in higher education and has keen sense in the generously spirit of the fraternity. Dr. Tiruvasagam has led many apex bodies and state level and national level, guiding them, achieving the excellence in higher education. In recognition of the academic contribution in the field of higher education, he was awarded with Colombo Plan Fellowship by British Council UK in 1992. He was adjudged for Best Management Leader by International Business Council Mumbai in 2016. The outstanding awards includes the National Award and the Exemplary Service to the Community Award, then President by the then President of India, APJ Abdul Kalam, as the Service Above Self Award by the Rotary International. A person of the great eminence, Colonel Dr. Tiruvasagam, the President of AAU, Vice Chancellor of AMT, Chennai. Now I warm welcome you, sir. Justice Hulwadi G. Ramesh is the second senior most judge at the Madras High Court, India, since April 2016. He briefly officiated as the acting Chief Justice of High Court. Sri Ramesh started off as advocate in Mysore in 1981 and initially used to practice in the courts of Mysore and Bangalore districts. He became district judge in Karnataka in February 1993, was promoted as additional judge at High Court of Karnataka in September 2004. Justice Hulwadi G. Ramesh has delivered many landmark judgments in his what we call notable justice of country. We are extremely happy that we are beholden to him for accepting the invitations and to deliver the valedictory address today. I extend warm welcome to Honorable Justice Sri Hulwadi G. Ramesh. As the Secretary General of Association of Indian Universities, Dr. Pankaj Mittal has a wisdom and sagacity to guide her organization on even keel. Her academic merit and administration acumen have stood her in a good stead. We have been able to get an idea for her ability to organize and execute the national meet and conferences on such a huge scale. It speaks volumes of the respect she commands with her peers and also the fellow vice chancellors. Madam, thanking you for your tireless work and organizing this twin event, I extend warm welcome to you, madam. Dr. S. Ramadevi Pani, editor of University News AAU, has a rich experience. She is ably assisting Dr. Pankaj Mittal, the General Secretary. I welcome Dr. Ramadevi Pani very warmly to this occasion. Professor Lokanath, my colleague, Director PMEB, is a silent worker and poised to carry out the bigger responsibilities in future. He can have a sign of relief at this 96th annual meet at a great success. His contribution is quite substantial. I welcome Dr. Lokanath as a nodal officer to this occasion. It is my privilege indeed to welcome all the vice chancellors who are present on this occasion and all of those who are joined online. I welcome all the invitees, syndicate and academic council members, my colleagues, both teaching and non-teaching, and the members of media. Last but not least, as a co-host, I am aware even the best plans may go sometimes away. I am happy when everything went on well, but it is my request to you, please carry away only the good memories. If there are any shortcomings, kindly excuse us. Thanking you one and all.
Now, I request our Vice Chancellor to receive a bouquet from Dr. Chetan, the Special Officer. Thank you, sir. Professor N.K. Lokanath, Director, Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation Board, University of Mysore, and also the nodal officer of this meet and conference, is basically from physics faculty, specializing in condensed matter, physics and matter physics and biophysics. Professor Lokanath has established protein crystallography laboratory and sophisticated X-ray differentiometer facility at the University of Mysore for the first time. His areas of research include structural biology, chemical biology, and structural studies of enzymes and new materials. His research in South Korean University from 2000 to 2002 and Harima Institute, Hyogo, Japan from 2002 to 2007 has stood him in good stead among fellow scientists. Now I request Professor Lokanath, the nodal officer of this conference, to present the report.
Good afternoon. I'm very happy to read the report from the last 3 deliberations. The Association of Indian Universities and United Nations, in collaboration with the University of Mysore, organized the 96th annual meet and national seminar of Vice Chancellors on the theme, Realizing Sustainable Development Goals through Higher Education Institutions. More than 100 Vice Chancellors across the country attended the seminar offline, and around 100 Vice Chancellors participated online, along with AIU team members, faculty members of the host institute, and other stakeholders. The conference was inaugurated by His Excellency Sri Thawar Chand Gehlot, Honorable Governor of Karnataka, who lit the lamp in the virtual presence of His Excellency Sri M. Venkaiah Naidu, Honorable Vice President of India. Professor G. Hemanta Kumar, Vice Chancellor, University of Mysore, delivered the welcome address. Honorable Governor opined that NEP is a visionary document that is aimed at ushering in much needed reforms in the education sector to meet the demands of the 21st century. In his brief speech, Vice President Sri Venkaiah Naidu appealed to all states to implement NEP 2020 with zeal to bring about transformation in the learning teaching ecosystem. The Vice President remarked that universities must become centers of knowledge creation in today's era of knowledge, exhorting the youth to become aware, skilled, and progressive while being creative and confident. He insisted that the younger generation must build the nation. With India being the 3rd largest education system in the world, with 1,050 universities, 43,000 colleges, and thousands of professional colleges, the Vice President aspires to see India among top 10 universities in the world. Hailing the role of academic institutions in sustainable education, Vice President said that the aim of education should not be just to find employment, but it should enlighten our minds and make us aware of our culture and values. The theme presentation was made by Dr. Pankaj Mittal, Secretary General AIU, while the President of AIU, Colonel Dr. G. Tiruvasagam, delivered the presidential address. A journal of higher education and a book on implementing National Education Policy 2020, a roadmap, edited by Dr. Pankaj Mittal and Dr. S. Ramadevi Pani, were released on the occasion. Finally, Professor R. Shivappa, the Registrar, University of Mysore, proposed vote of thanks. As a part of the national seminar, 96th AIU Foundation lecture was delivered by Sri T.S. Tirumurthy, Permanent Representative of India to the United Nations. He highlighted the role of India in addressing the global issues, including terrorism, COVID-19, Afghan and Ukraine crisis in the changing global scenario. He emphasized the need to promote quality education in Indian universities with international global standard for sustainable development. The 3-day-long deliberations were focused on 17 SDGs formulated in 2015. On day 1, there were 4 sessions. Session 1 was for interface with the heads of apex bodies, chaired by Professor Suranjan Das. The speakers who joined online were Professor Anil D. Sahasrabudhe, Chairman, IACT, Professor Bhushan Patavardhan, Chairman, NAC, Professor K.K. Agarwal, Chairman, NBA, and Dr. R.C. Agarwal, DDG, ICAR. The major recommendations are NAC has to revisit, rethink, and realign the existing mechanism of accreditation in the light of NEP 2020. One nation, one data, concept to be formulated to avoid the collection of the data from the universities by multiple agencies. Outcome-based education to be emphasized as per Washington Accord instead of the present input-based education. Sustainability to be included as one of the recognized graduate attributes. Enhance competitiveness while designing market-oriented course curriculum. Session 2 focused on interface with international delegates, international collaborations, and partnerships, was chaired by Professor Kavita A. Sharma. The speakers were Professor Amia Baumik, President, Lincoln University College, Malaysia, Dr. Aditya Malkani, ACU, Dr. Pomoshai, Representative IAU, Professor Hilje Wantland, Secretary General IAU, and Dr. Bola Thapa, Vice Chancellor, Kathmandu University, Nepal. The key highlights of this session are develop sustainable development network as done by ACU and IAU. Vice Chancellors should lead in policy making towards sustainability, promote social equity mindset among students, prepare community for lifelong learning and avoid loss of our talent to developed countries, strengthen science and policy interface, research indigenous systems and fuse with current knowledge. And session 3 and 4 were AIU business and general sessions. These were closed and private sessions exclusively for the Vice Chancellor to discuss the internal issues of AIU. Further, in the same session, Professor Suranjan Das, Vice Chancellor, Jadavpur University, Kolkata, and Professor G.D. Sharma, Vice Chancellor, University of Science and Technology, Shillong, were elected as new President and Vice President of AIU, respectively, for the year 2022 to 2023. There are also discussions on the grievances of the member universities with the various regulatory bodies. On day 2, there were 4 technical sessions on realizing SDGs through HEIs. The technical session 1 was ensuring equality and sustainable society. You look at the slide, SDGs 5, 10, 11, and 12. Professor P.B. Sharma, Vice Chancellor, Amity University, Gurugram, chaired the session. The speakers were Professor Rajita Kulkarni, President, Sri Sri University, Katak, Odisha, Dr. Yogeshwari, Senior Advisor, Niti Ayog, and Professor Rajan Velukar, former Vice Chancellor, RO University. The key recommendations are, there should be a policy for improving women representation in HEIs at leadership positions and senior academic roles. Capacity building for women in STEM programs, entrepreneurship, and startups should be increased and sustained. The HEIs should integrate our cultural values into the curriculum. The technical session 2 was based on essential of well-being SDGs 1, 2, 3, and 6. The Professor P. Kaliraj, the Vice Chancellor of Valedictory University, was the chairperson. The speakers were Professor Sanjeevi, Professor Surappa, and Professor Jayant Ravi. So the key recommendations are integration of SDG concepts in relevant courses at UG and PG levels, and develop inter and multidisciplinary collaborative research focusing on SDGs. Technical session 3 leads to the SDGs 7, 13, 14, and 15, clean energy for creating suitable ecosystem, was chaired by the session Professor G.D. Sharma, Vice Chancellor, and Professor K.S. Rangappa, former Vice Chancellor of University of Mysore, Professor Vibha Dhawan, D.G. Terry, Dr. Anup Mudugal, former High Commissioner of India to Mauritius, were present, and major recommendations of this will be the universities can collaborate with the research institutions and corporate for technology innovation following PPP model. And session 4, the SDGs 8, 9, 16 and 17 was chaired by Professor P. Timmegoda, Vice Chairman, Karnataka State Higher Education Council, and speakers are Professor Rajendra Shende, Chairman, Terra Policy, and Dr. Abel Kane, the Senior Project Officer UNESCO, Dr. Ashok Khosla, Founder President of Development Alternatives, and Sudesh Kumar Sohani. The major recommendations on this will be AAU with its resources should assist in developing universities in rural and tribal areas of the country for achieving the SDGs. On day 3, the morning, the technical session 5, so ensuring inclusive and equitable quality education, SDG 4, was chaired by Professor Sunil Rai, Vice Chancellor UPS. The speakers are Professor Dinesh Singh, Professor Dr. Rajesh Tandon, and Dr. Vedahi Vijay Kumar, Vice Chancellor of Mother Teresa Women's University. The key recommendations are the university should promote flexible curriculum incorporating the concept of design your own degrees for students with diverse interest and background. Identify the talent out of the vigor of the academic system and provide opportunities to nurture them. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Loknath. Ladies and gentlemen, no conference will be complete without the feedback. Yeah. So I request Colonel Dr. Thiruvasakam, the President of AIU, to indicate 2 participants to give us the feedback.
I invite chancellors come to the dais, tell about sentences, how we have enjoyed our hospitality, what University of Mysore went to us, especially our chancellor. I think the speaker need not be who have already spoken, came to the dais and spoken. Other than speaker, please come to us. We have seen some of them in this stage. Please excuse us. Any other people, please come to the dais.
Each one will have 2 minutes.
Please come. Any other people, please come. Who have spoken, they have spoken much. Come on. 2 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. President, for giving me a chance to share my experience regarding the hospitality at University of Mysore. I am Professor Ram Lakhan Singh. I am Vice Chancellor of Neelambar Pitambar University, Medini Nagar, Palamu, Jharkhand. Since I landed at Bengaluru airport, it was so good actually that people received me over here. The taxi immediately came over there. We have been, I reached along with 2 of my other fellow vice chancellors to Mysuru hotel. The hospitality was very good. They received us, they put us in the hotel. Obviously in the morning, we have been guided to the venue of the conference. The arrangements were really, really good, and it will not complete the statement without thanking the Honorable Vice Chancellor of University of Mysore. He has been so kind, so generous, and so down to earth that, I mean, I cannot express in words actually. Thank you, sir, Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir. Volunteers, they have been extremely good, and I really appreciate how they have treated all of us, whether it is a transportation volunteers, whether they are the volunteers who are managing the food, etc. So everything has been very, very good, right from the sending the letters of the invitation to the different vice chancellors. Especially I share my own experience. So I am very, very thankful to be here in this University of Mysore, and I am really delighted to be here. I thank the organizers, the Honorable Vice Chancellor, the volunteers, the AIU team. Thank you very much.
Christy, Vice Chancellor, Prist University, Tamil Nadu, Tanjavur. You can bring the best players, best cricketers, let's say, and put them in a football ground. What will you see? and you can bring the best footballers, take them to a cricket ground. Is that of any use? Yeah, you brought the best lot, the best vice chancellors, but we wanted a playing ground, a wonderful setting. Mysore University provided it. We thank you, sir. Nobody can miss our Honorable Vice Chancellor of Mysore University, right? Teacher, sir, I'm envious of you. I've always tried to put on weight. I never did. But we saw him everywhere. We saw him everywhere. He was with us in the lunch grounds. He was with us in the dining table, and he walked with us even in the Brindavan garden. Sir, we salute you. We salute your efforts. And the nodal officer. We can't